Hello, and welcome back to Behind the Post. I'm Olivia Messina, our social media and community manager, and I am back today with another solo episode talking about something that I'm sure every social media professional can relate to, and that is burnout. And I'm sure every professional out there has experienced burnout in one way, shape, or form. But throw social media into the mix, and it's a totally different story. I mean, how do you unplug when being plugged in is quite literally your job? And not to mention everything that social media managers have to juggle. Contrary to popular belief, we're not just scrolling Instagram all day. Social media managers are expected to have so many skills. There are so many things that we're expected to do every day. We're copywriters, content creators, video actresses, producers, community managers, photographers, graphic designers, analysts, strategists. I feel like I could go on and on here, but we're really on the front lines. There's so much we're doing, there's so much we're managing, and we have to keep a pulse on everything that's going on. We have to keep a pulse on. And, you know, coupled with that is kind of the pressure of being the voice of the company. And this role is something that requires constant creativity. And if you're not careful, that could quickly lead to burnout. So that is what I'm here to talk to you today, chat about burnout and talk about a few of the things that I have done in the past few months to help cope with burnout. But before we dive in, I thought we would just quickly just define burnout so we can all be on the same page here. So by definition, by the World Health Organization, burnout is a symptom conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It is characterized by three dimensions: feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, and reduced professional efficacy. So it's really not surprising how social media managers can quickly feel burnt out, feel distance, not have the energy to keep going because we are creating, we are managing a lot. And when you are kind of holding that on the weight of your shoulders, some days it's really hard. It's really hard to show up and be creative when you're just exhausted. And social media managers are on social media all day long, which we all know is not the best for your mental health. But we love social, we love what we do. So today I'm going to walk through some of the things that you can keep in your toolkit to stay on top of the game and avoid burnout at all costs. And just again, these are a few of the things that have helped me and the few things that I've implemented over the past couple of months that I've really seen make a difference in my day to day and overall just in my quality of life. So let's just dive in. So I have 6 kind of tips and categories for you guys today. So the first one here is to have a brain dump document. So there are lots of moving parts to social. And when you are doing so much and quickly moving from task to task, there could be an idea that comes to mind, or you're in the middle of creating something and you have an idea for your next campaign. And then you just keep on working on that task and then you forget the idea. So something that I have found to really help this is having a brain dump document where anytime that I have an idea, I just immediately open up that document and throw it in there. And this is also a great place where you can come when you get stuck or you have writer's block and you just need some inspiration. Having that list of post ideas to create down the line or something that you saw on LinkedIn that inspired you, keeping it in that document, that has been really, really helpful for me. And I also love to brainstorm with my colleagues. So you can also share this document with your team and have them add in any ideas or anything that comes to mind. I always find when I'm stuck, a good brainstorming session with my colleagues is always helpful. So just having that doc, sharing it with your colleagues, that can be really helpful for when you get stuck and you just kind of need a little nudge there with your content. And in a similar fashion, something that I also started doing is keeping a doc full of engaging hooks. So sometimes when you sit down to write a post, you just can't think of a good way to start it. So when I'm scrolling through LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook and I see an engaging hook, I will copy and paste it into my doc so that I have it when I get stuck and need something engaging. And I also keep in there some of the intros and hooks that I've done in posts because that's something that I feel really helps, especially, you're writing so much content every day. And the one thing we know with social is you need to hook your audience very quickly, especially if you have a longer post. It's very important to hook your audience in the first couple of sentences. So that is something that has really helped me out. So just keeping a brain dump doc and then also just a doc of engaging hooks, things that you see. So try that out. I guarantee it will kind of help spark your inspiration a little bit. My next tip here is to set boundaries. Now, social media never sleeps, but social media managers need to. And it's easy to never turn off as a social media manager because you could always, always, always be doing more. There's always one more tweet you could write. There's always one more video you could film. There's always one more campaign that you could be working on. There's always more that you can be doing. So it's really important to set boundaries because you could easily wake up and never stop working. So I think it's really important to have a set starting time and ending time. And then also make sure to communicate those times with your teams so that everyone's kind of on the same page. I really think it's not a realistic expectation to always be on just because you work in social media. Yes, emergencies do happen, but as long as you can be contacted, I don't think you need to be constantly working just because you work in social. And I think it's safe to say if a comment comes in, around 7 p.m., 8 p.m., I think you can let it sit until the next day. You have to have a stop time. You cannot just keep working the whole night. So we don't work on the ER. No one's dying over this. So don't feel like you need to constantly be working. Like I said, yes, emergencies happen. Make sure you are contactable. But again, it's social media. It's not a medical emergency. And this is something that I actually kind of struggled with in the beginning. I think every new social media manager is so passionate and excited and energetic right out of the gate. And I found myself overworking a lot of the days, and it would be 9, 10, even 11, and I would be in bed just kind of creating content still, where realistically that's not healthy for anyone. And it's so important to rest. And another tip around this to kind of avoid working way into the night or way into the evening, if you do have a lengthy task, make sure to do that first thing, so that you're not, again, working and trying to finish it way into the night. And when it comes to social, it also is hard to prioritize when everything feels important. The one thing that I have found with having a to-do list that feels like it's never ending, I like to have my top 3 priorities every single day, my top 3 tasks that need to be done that day. This just kind of helps me sleep better at night, knowing that I got my top 3 most important things done. So that's something that you could try to help out with prioritization. I know it's really challenging, but that's something that could help. And continuing on with the boundaries, when you are out on vacation or you are out on PTO, I think it is so incredibly important to totally unplug and not check in on any of the content, not go to your company's pages and look and make sure everything is going okay. Of course, you need to have someone, a colleague, to keep up on comments and engagements while you're away. But I think it's really important that social media managers have time to unplug, over the weekend. Try not to look. It just kind of pulls you back into work mode when you should be relaxing and unwinding, because if we do not, again, we're going to get burnt out. So make sure that you have that time and space away from work. And this is actually something that I did when I went on vacation a few weeks ago, or a few months ago now, I guess. I completely unplugged. I took a week off of work and I went on vacation with my family. And I did not check any work socials, not even once. And to be honest, I wasn't even really tempted to because I really needed the break. But 1 full week of not even thinking about work was really incredible. And then I came back refreshed and reset and ready to go with so many more ideas and so much more energy and excitement for my work. So if you are starting to get into those kind of routines on the weekends, I think we can kind of replicate that feeling of, coming back from a long vacation. we can start to kind of replicate that on the weekends too. If we're really unplugging and getting a rest and then coming back into the week with a fresh headspace, I think that is something that could totally help us out with burnout. Moving on to the next tip here, and that is to plan in advance. And if you are not doing this, if you are not planning out your content in advance, this is a for sure way to get burnt out because there is nothing more stressful than trying to post day by day. I've had it happen to me a few times where I've gotten behind and I have to post the actual day of, create the posts and post them on the same day. And I know if you're not a social media manager, you're probably listening in and you're like, okay, you're a social media manager. You're supposed to post on social. What's the big deal? But it is very, very stressful because content takes so long to create. If you want to create good, rich, valuable content, it takes a long time to create. So if you are trying to go day by day, you are going to be so stressed. You are going to be so overwhelmed. Um, and it's just not a good work environment for you. So I like to always stay 1 week ahead. So every week I have all of my content planned and ready to go for that current week. And then during that work week, I'm working on the content for the following week. And I think this is also just good practice as social media managers because social media moves so quick and trends move so quick. And if you are trying to plan out content like a month or 2 months in advance, the content that you're kind of creating and sharing, it might not be relevant in a month's time, especially if you are creating content around certain trends or things that are happening in the industry, things like that. It might not be relevant by the time that post goes out. So I have found that 1 week or 2 weeks in advance is a great happy medium because you still have a week's worth of content. If something goes wrong or if something happens or if you're out sick, you have content ready to go. But it's not too far in advance where the content you're creating isn't going to be relevant in a few, weeks or so. So always plan in advance. And that will already, set you up for success. My next tip here is to stretch content as far as it can go. So, as social media managers, we need to be working smarter and not harder because we simply do not have the time to reinvent the wheel. It's really hard. We are already stretched so thin as it is. And we just don't have time to create something from scratch for every single post. So, stretching your content as far as it can go is really helpful. And also, you work really hard on the content that you do create. So, of course, you want it to reach far and wide. So, if there's a great blog post that goes out, you can, repurpose that blog post and turn it into a couple of social posts highlighting the key takeaways. You could also make it into a short video, and then also repurposing the content for each network. You, of course, have a different strategy for each network, and you might have a different content strategy per network as well. But I think, you can repurpose content for each network. For example, if you're posting something on LinkedIn, you can tailor the messaging to also post it on Facebook and then tailor it a lot to go on Twitter because we know it's totally two different formats there. But it is okay to repurpose content for each network as long as you are tailoring it to the network and for the strategy you have for each channel. But it can be really intimidating when you open up and you have a calendar that you have to fill of content. So make sure you take a look at what's already out there, what your company has already created, what your content team has, and start from there. If there's already a webinar that's created, you can grab a clip and use it on social, or if there's tons of good ebooks that your company has as resources, create some shorter form, valuable content from that and get those out on social. So work smarter, not harder. We don't need to reinvent the wheel every time we go to sit down and create a post. So try to reuse and recycle that content as often as you can. My fifth tip here is to know your limits. And this one can kind of be challenging, especially for new social media managers or experienced social media managers too. If there is simply too much work or you need help, do not wait until you are drowning to ask for help. Communicate with your team and be honest. And this really goes for day-to-day tasks as well. If you are not in a creative mood, and you're forcing yourself to be, you are not going to get good content out of that. It usually just results in yourself sitting at the computer, just trying to create something and absolutely nothing is coming out. So, this does happen and this is okay. And I think the best thing to do in this kind of situation is just to take a break and do something mindless, like going on a walk or doing the dishes. And sometimes, you only have so much creative juice in a day, and sometimes you just need to sleep on it. So instead of trying to do something creative, use that time to do more of your admin work and more of the behind the scenes work that doesn't take a ton of creativity. If you're trying to film a video or create like a super big, exciting announcement post, and you're not feeling creative, take a break, work on something more mundane, or do an admin type of task or reply to comments. And then you might just need to sleep on it. And the next day, come back refreshed and ready to go. And that really helps. And sometimes we don't have the luxury, if you have a deadline and you need to get something out, and you can't sleep on it, I would just suggest, again, going for a walk or doing something you enjoy, or taking small breaks and then coming back to your work. And then, even going back to your brain dump document with inspo and things like that, that could also help spark your creativity. And sometimes just even scrolling on LinkedIn or Twitter sometimes will also really help me. But it's really important to know your limits and do not be afraid to ask for your help. Your managers are there for a reason. So it's really important to seek support if you need it. And my final section of tips here are some self-care and wellness tips that I have started doing recently that I feel have 100% changed how I feel throughout the workday and just kind of how I approach work. So these are things that I've actually started doing. And I think they could be really helpful for every social media manager and kind of every professional out there. So the first thing is to have time to yourself before your workday begins. I actually used to get right out of bed, immediately go to the coffee maker, make a cup of coffee, and then I would sit down and work. And then I would also work late into the night. And this left me feeling so burnt out because I was just working nonstop. I felt like I was working nonstop. I was dreaming about work constantly. I was always thinking about work. And it's because I was working all the time. I didn't take any time for myself in the morning. So it just led to that feeling of being burnt out, which no one wants. So my biggest tip would be take an hour, or if you can longer, try to wake up a little bit earlier and take time for yourself, even if you are just, going to maybe scroll TikTok or, go on a walk or read a book. Do something in the morning for you that will help set your day up for success. My next tip here is to get movement throughout the day. There used to be days where 3 p.m. would roll around and I didn't even step foot outside. Again, like I said, I was waking up and just working all day and just never stopping. So, something that has really helped me is getting movement throughout the day. So now I like to take at least one walk per day, and I'll usually do this in the morning or the early afternoon. And this is actually something I feel like has really helped my focus too. And I guess it kind of makes sense if you're just kind of sitting and staring at a screen all day. It's easy to feel exhausted and burnt out, but getting out in nature, going for a walk, it kind of helps you reset. And then my last tip here is just to take care of yourself, get good sleep, and make sure you're eating healthy, doing everything you can do to show up to work as your best self. And then finally, do not be too hard on yourself. We work in marketing, not the emergency room. So do not be too hard on yourself. No one is getting hurt over this kind of work that we're doing. And social media is a fun and very rewarding profession. So don't be too hard on yourself. And those are my social media manager burnout tips. I really hope that someone out there has found this helpful because it is something that I probably would say every social media manager has felt, that feeling of just being exhausted and burnt out and overworked, which is normal. Social media moves very quickly, but doing the above tips, I think can really help you in your role and really help you show up and be the best social media manager you can be. If you have any questions or if you would like to chat even further, you can feel free to message me on LinkedIn or reach out over email. My email is olivia@oktopost.com. So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.